Have you ever considered when are we actually supposed to learn about money? Most people would say when you get older, when you get your first job, or when you start living independently. But that assumption may already be too late, because by that time, financial education is considered relevant. And most people are already making some of the biggest financial decisions of their lives. Loans, credits, debt, these are not issues that begin in adulthood. They begin much earlier, quietly shaping our behavior long before we recognize their impact. Which leads to an important question: when should financial education actually begin? Or perhaps more importantly, why do we wait so long? We tend to think money as an adult responsibility, but in reality, it starts long before adulthood. It starts with small everyday decisions that feel unimportant at the time. For example, when a child receives money and faces a simple choice: do I spend it now or save it for later? Individually, these decisions feel unimportant, but over time they shape how we think about money. Do we act on impulse or think ahead? Do we choose short-term pleasure over long-term stability? Do we save or spend without thinking? The problem is that these early experiences are rarely guided. Most people develop financial habits naturally, rather than through real understanding. Now consider what might happen later. A young person reaches adulthood without learning how money works. And then suddenly they're giving financial independence, like credits, like income, banking, or access to credit. At first, it feels like freedom. But in reality, it brings complexity without preparation. Without basic knowledge, simple things like saving, budgeting, and interest are often not fully understood. People begin to spend without thinking ahead. Credit is used without understanding the long-term cost. Financial planning is often put off. And over time, what brings us independence can slowly turn into financial stress. Importantly, this is not because people are irresponsible. It happens because they were not prepared early enough. Let's start with one of the basic ideas: saving. Saving is often seen as limiting, but in reality, it is one of the simplest and most powerful habits a person can develop. It starts with consistency, putting aside a small part of what you get regularly, not a lot, just a part, because it's not about how much you save right now. It's about forming the habit. Over time, something happens. That money can grow, and it grows because of something very simple: interest. Interest simply means when your money starts earning more money, which makes timing very powerful. Two people may save the same amount, but one who starts earlier often ends up with more, not because they earned more, but because they started sooner. And another important idea is budgeting. Budgeting sounds complicated, but it does not have to be. It can be as simple as dividing what you have in three parts: one part to spend, one part to save, and one part to keep for future unexpected needs. At its core, it's just a way to organize your money. Budgeting is not about limiting your freedom. It's about understanding where your money actually goes. It turns money from something confusing into something clear and organized. Of course, most people eventually learn these skills, but often they learn them after mistakes, not before them, through financial stress, through overspending, through debt, and decisions that could be avoidable. And while experience is a powerful teacher, it is not always a forgiving one. So the question is, do we have to learn this through costly mistakes, or can we avoid them? Understanding money is not just about knowing facts. It's about, at a deeper level, it means independence. When people understand how money works, they feel more in control of their decisions. They're less likely to act on impulse and more able to handle pressure with confidence. Not because they have more money, but because they understand it. So we return to the original question: When should financial education actually begin? The answer is much earlier than most people think. Not when problems appear or not when it becomes necessary, but in the early stages of decision making, when our habits are still forming. Because financial literacy is not something that appears suddenly, it develops over time. In the end, money is not just about numbers. It's about behavior, decisions, and timing. Starting early does not guarantee perfection, but it gives you something very valuable: time. Time to learn, time to build good skills, and time to make mistakes while the risks are still small. And perhaps the most important financial decision isn't how much you spend or how much you earn, simply just when you begin. Thank you.